Brace yourselves, everyone, for we're going to be doing things a little bit differently this time. And like with every other video I try to do that in, we're in for a bumpy ride. But I guess you just expect that at this point. Greetings, fellow Vita fans. This is James with PS Vita at 2 a.m. talking about the PS Vita 24 hours a day on YouTube. Yeah. How's that for blatant product placement? And if you're new here and love everything PlayStation Vita, don't forget to subscribe. So as mentioned, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently this time around. When it comes to the general public talking about the PS Vita, one of its main critiques is, well, it just doesn't have that many big games. Or any games in general, according to certain employees over at GameStop. But this could not be further from the truth, because the PS Vita does in fact have a much bigger library of AAA style games than one would first expect. And this comes in the form of PSP games. These are titles that you can download on the good old PS Vita store currently. Now please keep in mind that this list can vary between region to region, though I'd imagine that most people have a workaround around that at this point. It's the PS Vita in 2023 after all. Thus, today's topic is going to be all about big PSP games that you might not even know exist on the platform. What PSP games do you recommend that others should know about? Let me know. A huge thank you and shout out to the fine people over at Patreon and the YouTube members of this channel. They helped vote for this topic. Now let's get on with it. First up is Mortal Kombat Unchained for the PSP/PS Vita because, you know. Now I remember back in the day when this first launched on the good old PSP. It was truly revolutionary. Wanna start a revolution? I know I do. I'm dating myself again. Having a full-fledged console version of Mortal Kombat shrunk into our pockets and letting us take it wherever we wanted? You mean I can take a Wicked 2 while enjoying Round 2? Yes, please. It was really a big deal for its time. In fact, I would even argue even by today's standards, it's still pretty awesome. Now, if memory serves me correct, Mortal Kombat Unchained is based off of the console version of Deception, if I'm not mistaken, which I probably am, with almost every feature from the console version at the time implemented on a good old UMD, but now available as a digital download on your Vita. Which, thank goodness, I personally wasn't a fan of those UMDs. I am now awaiting hate comments. In fact, as far as the roster goes, it actually includes some characters that were not available at the time on the console version, because along with Goro and Shao Kahn, who were included for the GameCube version of Deception, players can also choose to fight as Katana, Jax, Frost, or Blaze. Yeah, very similar to the way Street Fighter Cross Tekken turned out on the Vita. They actually gave us additional content for buying the portable version of the game, and that was awesome, and caused a lot of drama amongst PS3 users back in the day. And not only does it have all of the massive amounts of extra unlockable content that Deception had, but it also includes some extra bonus games, such as being able to play the Puzzle Fighter version of MK. Oh, they're so adorable. Now, one of the biggest gripes that I personally had with this game back on the good old PSP was the fact that the analog stick on the PSP, well, it wasn't really geared very well for fighting games. But thankfully, because the PS Vita does in fact have an analog stick too, mind you, it makes playing this game a heck of a whole lot more fun than even back on the good old PSP. And the load times can be a little bit on the lengthy side. It's not perfect, but hardly a game breaker. So if you've never had a chance to try out this version of Mortal Kombat, I highly recommend you picking it up right now and giving it a go for yourself. Trust me, the hours will just whittle away with how much content this game has to offer. Thus, get ready to rip some heart out. Literally. Now, as mentioned earlier, one of the biggest critiques that the PS Vita gets is the fact that there aren't any Monster Hunter games on it. Well, aside from those Japanese-only exclusive versions that are online only, which for us over in the West is, yeah, it's nothing. We got squat over here. But did you know that there are Monster Hunter games on the PSP that were brought over to the good old Vita via the Vita store? Man, that's a lot of V's. Try saying that 10 times fast. So we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter Freedom, one of the very first portable versions of Monster Hunter 2, if I remember correctly, which I'm probably not. Now, I'm assuming that everybody and their mother knows all about the Monster Hunter series at this point, but just in case you didn't, or were living under a rock back then, much like myself, it's not your typical JRPG flair. In fact, I'd be kinda hard-pressed to even consider this a true JRPG at its core. You're not gonna find any kind of complex storyline with plot twists and in-depth characters and all that stuff. Oh, and no main dudes with amnesia, thank goodness. Basically, Basically, you take on the role of a character that has a to-do list of killing various baddies and collecting loot and treasure on their way. Think of it sort of like in the vein of, I don't know, Pokemon, but like with monsters that you like kill and stuff. It's a lot more violent. Think of it as sort of a super evil version of Pokemon, only you carry back their carcasses and stuff. Come to think of it, I think that makes it better. It really did appeal to a certain type of gamer back in the day, albeit a much smaller one for back then. But what was niche back in those days has now blown up to a full-fledged franchise, although you don't need me to tell you that. So how exactly does MH Freedom hold up by today's standards? Fans already know what to expect. You head off in search of a specific beast and, well, slay them. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of things. You murderer, you. And while that is the main meat and potatoes of said game, you'll quickly find out that there is plenty of foresight and strategy needed to bring down the game's toughest creatures. You'll need the right weapons and armor, of course, but you will also need to learn the behavior of each of the species as well. For example, there are certain types of creatures out there that you'll need to implement the aid of traps in order to slay them. And that right there is just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. Also, it gave me an excuse to post this meme, so that's good. Many monsters will have you implementing multiple strategies in order to defeat them. Then you wash, rinse, repeat, and do it all over again. And man, can it be so addicting. Maybe this is also a super evil version of Jurassic Park the more I think about it. But however, just like with Mortal Kombat that I talked about earlier, it's not without its set of flaws. The two biggest being, yup, you probably guessed it, longer than needed load times, although I guess it was needed back then, and the fact that some of the missions that this game puts you on can be a little bit on the lengthy side, which can be seen as a negative because, you know, the PS Vita is portable, and so was the PSP back that it originated on. Did you even know that, 2009 devs? So you're not gonna get that many bite-sized missions that you would first expect in a title like this. But hey, you can always just put your PS Vita in sleep mode, I guess. Either way, if you're a Monster Hunter fan or have been thinking about dabbling into the series, I highly recommend trying this one out, especially if you got a Vita, and cause mass genocide to random fictional creatures, like we needed an excuse to. Okay, now you might be surprised at this point that I'm going to be throwing yet another curveball into this list of games for the Vita. You see, I wanted to talk about a JRPG. Now at that point, you probably would expect I'd be talking about the likes of Final Fantasy or something along those lines. But you'd be wrong. Instead, I'm going to be talking about a series that was in fact a AAA JRPG back in the day that is sadly kind of, well, been forgotten. Story of my life. Enter Lunar, Silver Star Harmony, or Lunar, or Lunar, or however you want to pronounce it. Now, the reason why I decided to add this to the list is, well, I wanted to bring more notoriety to the series, but also because, in my personal opinion, the PSP version of this game is the definitive version of it, of which there are many. It's definitely the best playing and the purtiest. Now, I will say one thing right off the bat here. If you are, in fact, a huge JRPG fan who is used to the more complex dynamics of modern JRPGs out there, you might find the likes of Lunar to be a little too much on the simplistic side, but I think you should still give it a try. Please, I'm begging you. Now, at its core mechanics, Lunar plays like your typical turn-based role-playing game. You'll gather up a team of friends comprised of warriors, mages, and you'll battle your way through a variety of bosses and dungeons. You'll have healing herbs, magic spells, and sword techniques all at your disposal as you trade turns with enemies on the battlefield. Sounds pretty standard by today's standards, right? But in there lies its genius because it implements each and every one of these very, very well. Yeah, there's a good reason why this game got so many ports back in the day. Now, if you're into in-depth stories and characters, and oh, does Lunar ever have this in spades? There are plot twists abound, character development like crazy, people you're not sure you can fully trust, and some that you might not trust, but then eventually end up trusting in the end. Oh man, kinda like this channel, only in reverse. And for hardcore Lunar fans out there, you'll be very delighted to find out that everything has been redone for this game. Everything from the sprites to the characters to the menus are just absolutely gorgeous in this version. And I was even surprised to find out myself back in the day that certain story elements have been expanded on to help fill in the plot holes from the original game back on the Sega CD and multiple other platforms. So if you want to scratch that retro JRPG itch and have completely exhausted every entry in the Final Fantasy series, I think you should check out Lunar. It definitely won't disappoint. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't think of a better outro for that. And that, as they say, is that. Thus, that will conclude my list of big PSP games that I think you should give a try on the PS Vita that you may not have been aware even existed. Had a little something here for everybody. But guys, I would love to know now, what games do you recommend that are big PSP titles that more people should be aware of? Please leave me your suggestions down in the comment section below. And as always, fellow Vita fans, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It really means a lot to me. Love you all, and I'll see you next time. This video has been brought to you in part by all of these wonderfully generous Patreon and YouTube membership supporters who help make this content possible. So a huge thank you goes out to Buzz Sayin, Hector Gonzalez, Franz Hartle, Chris Foxhound, Razel Pliskin, Kayonko, Oridri, Jimmy Gilby, 1488 Dental, That Bro, No Good, Azumara, Juan M. Hermosillo, Lacerated 87, Nintendo Switch at 2 AM, Eric DeWitt, Neo Arashi, Donut Valley, Tasha Monty, Milk Sama, Bushin Ryu Cat, Ricardo Martinez, Mazgas, PSP Guru, Matt Fox, Cham Plow, Saban Fire, Jamie, Reiko Star, Werthorga, Rendi Azadich, Meshuga 360, Zakrito, Samai 241, Ellen Iwazuk, Airkick 72, Shin Snake, Hero Acer, BMF, Phantom XRS, Gutter Drums, Adam Sony, Claimer Malarkey, Saul Ramirez, Hemdall Imbert, PS Vita S, VG Legends, Kyle Brooks, Richard Cruz, Jared Hado, JR, Joseph Shavak, Kevin Enright, Silica, Jelle, Heston Joseph, Thomas Cromet, H-Hitter, Crazy Cat, Adam Thury, Wendy K, Michael O'Connor, Rodrigo Vera, Skulshur Tugel TCG, and David Ray. If you would be interested in supporting the channel and gaining access to a number of perks, including having your name featured on the end credits of these videos, or if you wish to remain anonymous, that can be provided too, then make sure to check the links down in the description below. I have numerous ways for you to do this down there. Can't support in this manner? Don't worry about it. I also have some affiliate links from both Amazon and PlayAsia for anyone who is interested in purchasing something from them. Basically, the way it works is so long as you use one of those links to just access their website, then anything you purchase afterwards, a small commission will go to help support this content at no extra cost to you, the consumer. I also have channel merchandise available, and of course, as always, likes and shares can help equally as much. So aside from excessive load times, everything else was on point. I guess that's a good thing?